Good evening and welcome to Eagle Eye News at 6.
Eagle Eye TV has done a great job.
And welcome to Eagle Eye News at 6.
We are just having a great time here in Auburn, Alabama. The party is not over yet.
Eagle Eye TV, Auburn's news leader.
Good evening and welcome to Eagle Eye News at 6. I'm Beauman Ivester.
And I'm Estes. Thank you for joining us.
As students and citizens prepare to head to the ballot box this Tuesday, many voters may be wondering what exactly they'll be voting for. Luckily, Eagle Eye's Brett Fouts has got you covered with a guide for what a ballot will look like for Lee County voters in 2024.
As students and citizens prepare to head to the ballot box on Tuesday, some Lee County voters may be wondering what it is exactly they're voting on. We're here to break down the ballot and what exactly it is Lee County voters will be voting for on Tuesday. In Lee County, there are only 4 elections that are uncontested. Here is a sample ballot. As you can see, the presidential election, Alabama Supreme Court Chief Justice, Lee County District Court Judge Spot Number 2, and Amendment 1 are the contested races. We spoke to political science professor Dr. Joseph Astrup to clarify what Amendment 1 is asking of voters.
What the school district there wants to do is take that land and sell it and use the proceeds for education in that particular area. This is a relic of really kind of our Alabama Constitution. That local district would have to amend the Constitution through a referendum in order to achieve this goal.
We also asked Dr. Astrup about the effect these elections will have on Auburn students.
Its effect on Auburn students is pretty important in the sense that if we see a situation whereby one of the presidential candidates is actually challenging the outcome, saying that it was rigged, that could have some far-reaching effects upon the future of our democracy in the United States.
For Eagle Eye TV, I'm Brett Fouts.
With this influx of first-time voters, many college students and young adults may hold uncertainties about what this election could look like and how to interpret the results. However, Eagle Eye's Ben Bradfield provides an analysis of the election results so far and what influence the swing states could have on the final results.
I'm Ben Bradfield, here to give you a brief analysis of the presidential election results so far. With Election Day tomorrow, this race has been nothing short of unpredictable. President Joe Biden stepped out as the incumbent Democratic nominee this summer, and Vice President Kamala Harris quickly gathered enough delegates to make her way to the top of a historic ticket. Former President and Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has faced 2 assassination attempts in the past 4 months. Top issues driving voters to the polls this election cycle include the economy, abortion, healthcare access, immigration, foreign policy, and crime. With most national polling showing either ties or results within the margin of error, let's take a look about how this year's election might turn out. Here we have an electoral map representing both red and blue states, filled in with their respective party colors. It's these 7 states in gray that will likely determine the outcome of this election. The states are Arizona and Nevada out west, Georgia and North Carolina in the south, and then the 3 Midwestern states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Harris and Trump will need 270 electoral votes to win. Now, as a hypothetical scenario, let's say former President Trump were to secure Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina, and Georgia, while Vice President Kamala Harris were to reserve the electoral votes of Wisconsin and Michigan. Either candidate to win Pennsylvania, which is the swing state with the highest number of electoral votes, would then reach 270 and secure the presidency. Looking at the states that former President Trump and Vice President Harris are likely to win and adding in electoral votes from these 7 swing states puts into focus how critical these states are. When looking at recent polling and historical voting trends, it's very likely that Pennsylvania is the state both candidates need to secure those 270 electoral votes. That's the key state we'll be watching as polling precincts are starting to report numbers. Now, turning our attention to the race for control of Congress. As for congressional seats in Washington, national polling from 538 predicts that Republicans will have a majority in the Senate, and polls speculating the House majority are almost tied or within the margin of error. Incumbent Representative Mike Rogers is currently the only candidate on official ballots for Alabama's 3rd District. As for more local positions, Democrat Greg Griffin and Republican Sarah Stewart are hoping to become the Chief Justice of Alabama's Supreme Court. Voters can select yes or no for statewide Amendment 1, which proposes that land owned by the Franklin County School Board is only used for profit when it is given back to the school board. There are a lot of issues at stake in this election, but the most important part is that you have a voice. If you're registered, make sure to get out to vote tomorrow and be the change you want to see. After all, if there's anything to be certain about this election, it is that it is entirely uncertain. I'm Ben Bradfield with Eagle Eye News at 6.
It has been over a month since SB 129 took effect and Auburn University's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion was dissolved. This change has created confusion and concerns among students, leaving them wondering how student enrollment and DEI scholarships will be impacted. Eagle Eye reporter Morgan Sims spoke with Dr. Geoffrey Gaiman, Vice President of Student Enrollment at Auburn University, and tells us more about this topic.
It has been nearly a month since Bill SB 129 officially took effect, and in compliance to the bill, Auburn University dissolved its DEI office. This has raised some concerns for students about the effect it will have on enrollment and scholarships. Dr. Geoffrey Gaiman, Vice President of Enrollment at Auburn University, claims that it will have no effect on scholarships and enrollment, but rather the parameters around DEI training requirements within the university.
The bill really does speak to any institution of higher learning that required students, faculty, and staff participate in training. Like, we could do training, but it can't be, it has to be unbiased, it's got to be neutral, and it can't be required.
Federal regulations already prohibited the use of race in admissions and scholarship awards prior to SB 129. The U.S. Supreme Court decision in June 2023 also banned the consideration of race in admission practices across the country.
This ruling really tightened up the evaluation process. In my mind, it really tightened up what criteria can be used and then to what extent it is used.
SB 129 is a historical document that warrants concerns for many, as the impact may be more than what meets the eye. And for Eagle Eye TV, I'm Morgan Sims.
2 weeks ago, Opelika High School went on lockdown after a shooting threat. A teen from Montgomery, Alabama has been arrested. Here's Eagle Eye's Ben Bradfield with details of the ongoing investigation.
Last week, Opelika High School received a shooting threat and proceeded to go into lockdown at 10:45 a.m. The threat was later cleared and a 14-year-old Montgomery resident was arrested with felony charges.
Opelika High School received a threat via phone call to the office. The person on the other end said that they were on their way to Opelika High School to shoot the school up. They described a situation with a student who was at the school, did not name the student, but said they were basically coming to target that student, and they would be there shortly.
After the threat was received, police then set up a perimeter around the school. Weeks after the lockdown, Opelika High School students still remember their thoughts in the moment. When confronted with the reality of the situation, student Taylor Phillips felt concerned not only for herself, but others.
It wasn't about me, it was really about my friends. I was just hoping that none of them were like in the bathroom. And I was just hoping that it was a drill. It wasn't a drill.
New evidence revealed in the Opelika Police Department and the FBI's ongoing investigation reveal that the teen had no plans to carry out the threat. Anyone with information is asked to come forward to Opelika Police. Reporting to you with Eagle Eye TV, I'm Ben Bradfield.
Last Wednesday, Auburn's College of Sciences and Mathematics students were exposed to dozens of exciting opportunities as Auburn's Healthcare Industry Day brought employers and internships to the Plains. The career fair, which took place in the Alumni Center from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., welcomed over 20 employers, graduate schools, and internships to come talk to students in healthcare-related majors about their opportunities that they offer. The event hosted employers like Children's of Alabama, the Alabama Department of Health, and Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Alabama, as well as higher education institutions like the UAB School of Medicine and Auburn's own Harrison School of Pharmacy. Senior COSAM leader Jane Freeman tells us about the importance of the event.
I think as a COSAM student, it can be really hard to see the big picture of what you're doing when you're in these hard science classes and you're just in the middle of school. And so being able to come to these events that COSAM puts on, like Healthcare Industry Day, is really great to kind of see the big picture and what you could be doing in any of these occupations in the future. I think it can also be really daunting to know what next steps you need to take, and so being at these events, you have people who are already established in these careers telling you the next steps you need to take and how they got there, and so hearing advice from them and just how to be established in that way is really important.
Students can find more information about events like this by following @AU Career on Instagram or by going to AU Involve.
Last Wednesday, the American Red Cross partnered with students from the American Pharmacists Association, Academy of Student Pharmacists, and the International Pharmaceutical Students Federation to host the annual Vampire Cup Blood Drive. This friendly competition between the chapters was held for the purpose of raising awareness and support. Eagle Eye reporter Lucas Hazelrig attended the blood drive and tells us more.
This past Wednesday, Auburn students were welcome along with others to donate blood in the annual Vampire Cup Blood Drive. This is a competition amongst American Pharmacists Association chapters all across the world to see which organization can help donate the most blood. The American Red Cross partnered with the International Pharmaceutical Students Federation to join them in their efforts to help make a difference this fall. I got a chance to speak with IPSF Vice President Kylie Franklin to hear what she had to say about the event.
So today we're hosting the Vampire Cup Blood Drive through the Alabama Pharmacy Association, Academy of Student Pharmacy. And this is just partnered with IPSF. And it's an international competition through all IPSF. It's a blood drive. It's just to get everyone competing and saving lives. And so we like to host that through our Auburn chapter and compete with all of the international chapters.
This event was launched all the way back in 2011 and has been a hit at universities ever since. Volunteers generous enough to donate to this cause make a big difference not just for the local chapter, but for those in need. Volunteers are what make events like this possible, and it's always interesting to hear what might have brought them out.
Decided to donate this week. Been a member of the 3-Gallon Club, and actually it's been over 20 years since I donated, but time and career got in the way for quite a while. Figured it was time to get back into giving blood. There's always a need for it, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to come today.
The Vampire Cup Blood Drive may be in the books, but that doesn't mean there aren't other chances to get involved in the cause. Head over to www.redcrossblood.org to find a blood drive in your area for your chance to make a difference.
Last Friday night in the Student Center Ballroom, Auburn UPC and the Latinx Student Alliance hosted a celebration for all students to come and celebrate Dia de los Muertos. UPC and LSA hosted this event so students could immerse themselves in the traditions of the Latin American holiday. The event featured free food and desserts for students provided by Las Latinas. There were also other activities such as cookie decorating and watching the critically acclaimed Disney Pixar film Coco. Overall, the event was an evening of joyous celebration and cultural enrichment.
Though Halloween may be over, there's a wealth of spooky stories left to carry us into November. There are several buildings here on Auburn's campus that are said to have spirits inhabiting them. One of them is Hargis Hall, a graduate school which is believed to be haunted by a lady in white who looks down onto the green at night. Another is the famous Sanford Hall. The structure was first built as a hospital for wounded soldiers during the Civil War. Although it is now the administrative headquarters for the university, it is said that a lone doctor from the war still wanders the halls late at night. The last is the University Chapel, a famous church that sits just outside the campus. It has hosted several activities for student organizations and is similarly believed to be haunted by a spirit from the Civil War. Legends tell of a soldier named Sidney Grimlett. There are several reports of knocking on the windows while the chapel is closed, which is believed to be the ghosts trying to communicate with the outside world. The stories told today only scratch the surface. When we come back, you'll get a weather update for this week on the plains from Eagle Eye's Albert Osario. You're watching Eagle Eye News at 6.
Welcome back to Eagle Eye News at 6. I'm Albert Osario here to give you your weather outlook for this week on the plains. This week, the high temperatures will go up to around 80 degrees, while the low temperatures will fall to near 60 degrees. Consistent mellow temperatures from last week will fall into this week, giving people more clothing options to wear outside. However, what may be required is a rain jacket or umbrella because there will likely be rainy conditions with possibly some thunderstorms starting on Wednesday and continuing throughout the week. Nothing too severe, but something to watch for if outdoor activities are planned. This weekend is not going to get any drier as rainfall is also likely to continue with an even higher chance of thunderstorms, possibly leaving events around Auburn to either be delayed or canceled. Thankfully, it won't happen in Jordan-Hare as the Tigers are resting on a bye week. The sun should set at approximately 5 p.m. like last week. As winter gets closer, the sunset should occur earlier with dropping temperatures throughout the weeks, something that many have waited for after a hot, humid summer and fall. That's all I have for the weather outlook of this week. When we come back, you'll get a national news update from Beauman and Alice. I'm Albert Osario, and you're watching Eagle Eye News at 6.
Welcome back to Eagle Eye News at 6.
With the election only a day away, we have a lot to cover tonight.
That's right, one of the most contentious presidential campaigns in modern history will come to a climax on Tuesday. As the date draws closer, CNN's Reed Binion brings us a comprehensive look at the final preparations Harris and Trump plan to make.
The image of our country is terrible. They view us as a failed country. We're going to turn it around.
Former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris.
We have 2 days. 2 days until we decide the fate of our nation.
Locked in a fierce fight for every vote in the 48-hour countdown to what could be a very close election. With 2 days to go, both campaigns focusing on battleground states where the stakes are high and the polls are tight. Meanwhile, a twist in the traditionally Republican state of Iowa, where new polling shows Trump is no longer leading Harris. Trump on Sunday bashing that poll and laying the groundwork to dispute the election results if he loses.
They are fighting so hard to steal this damn thing.
That baseless claim from Trump drawing ridicule from Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania.
I expected he was going to do that. It's not going to be effective, just any more effective than it was in 2020.
Meanwhile, security preparations are underway for Election Day and beyond. As a precaution, National Guard troops are on standby in several states for potential unrest, including Washington and Oregon, where police are looking for a suspect they say set ballot drop boxes on fire. Hundreds of ballots were damaged or destroyed in the fires. Security around Washington, D.C. is also being increased. I'm Reed Binion reporting.
Thanks, Reed. Election Day is tomorrow, and more than 70 million Americans have already cast their ballots. That's according to data gathered from 47 states in the District of Columbia. That figure is nearly 45% of the roughly 158 million votes cast for president in 2020. Nearly 70% of votes were cast ahead of Election Day that year, which took place amid the pandemic. But during the 2022 midterms, roughly half of the votes were cast before Election Day. Voting is the cornerstone of our republic, and we here at Eagle Eye look forward to seeing Auburn students exercising their rights and taking part in this historic election.
With the election tomorrow, you might be feeling all sorts of different emotions. No matter who you're voting for, this election has created a lot of tension in America, and such stress can negatively impact your sleep. Mandy Gaither explains the feeling of electsomnia and how you can help manage the symptoms.
If this election is causing you to lose sleep, you're not alone.
We call it electsomnia, so it's insomnia linked with the election season.
Sleep specialist Michelle Drera with Cleveland Clinic says in her clinical practice, she's seeing more people being triggered with election-related sleep issues. She says the election can worsen symptoms in those who already struggle with insomnia and can also trigger sleep issues in those who don't have chronic sleep problems.
The person has difficulty falling asleep and they may be kind of thinking about the election or potentially what the future might look like, waking up in the middle of the night and struggling to fall back asleep, or even just poor sleep quality.
Drerup says to prioritize sleep before you even go to bed by limiting social media and election news exposure, which can worsen stress and add to sleep difficulties. Also, be aware of your negative thoughts and challenge them.
Just try to stay in the moment of where things are at right now.
Finally, Drerup says not to focus on the election what ifs, instead zone in on things you can manage.
We have survived many elections. We'll get through this, right? It's only 4 years, trying to figure out what I do have the ability to control. I'm going to go out and vote. I'm trying to, do things to support others to vote. So thinking about what I can do versus a lot of what's out of my control.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The sleep specialist also says to remember to practice healthy sleep habits that include getting exercise regularly, avoiding napping late in the day, and limiting alcohol and caffeine before bed.
When we return, you'll get an Auburn sports update with Sophia Weber. You're watching Eagle Eye News at 6.
Welcome back to Eagle Eye News at 6. I'm Sophia Weber, back to give you a recap on all of the big stories that occurred in Auburn sports last week, right here on the Plains. Let's get right into it. We'll get started with two squads that are just starting their seasons. Both women's and men's basketball hosted exhibition games in Neville Arena this past week. Aggressive start to their season, dominating LaGrange with a staggering Diana Gaston led the charge with 32 points and 14 rebounds, while Auburn forced 30 turnovers, turning those into 41 points. The Tigers will look to keep that momentum going as they officially kick off the season tonight against Southern Illinois at 6 p.m. Now, let's pivot to the men's basketball team. In front of a sold-out crowd, the Tigers cruised to a 102-70 victory. Miles Kelly and Janai Broom both scored 15 points, while freshman Ja'Kai Howard shined with 14 points and 4 of the Tigers' 12 steals. After a sloppy first half filled with 9 turnovers, Auburn tightened their game and only committed 1 turnover in the second half. They'll be back in action next Wednesday against Vermont for an exciting tip-off on the Plains at 7 p.m. On that note, let's ride on over to equestrian. The number 1 equestrian team claimed a significant victory over number 4 Oklahoma State, winning 13-7 on the road. This victory keeps Auburn undefeated at 5-0, and they'll be back on the Plains on November 9th, hosting number 2 Texas A&M. Don't miss out on that matchup at the Auburn University Equestrian Center. Turning our attention to football, it was a tough return to Jordan-Hare Stadium as the Tigers fell to Vanderbilt 17-7. This marks the first time in program history that Auburn has lost to Vanderbilt at home. Despite outgaining the Commodores, Auburn struggled on third downs, converting just 2 of 13 attempts. They'll look to regroup during their bye week before facing Louisiana Monroe back home on November 16th. Switching gears to Auburn volleyball, they faced a tough battle against Ole Miss on Wednesday, falling in 4 sets, 3-1. Lauren Dreves and Peyton Dunn each notched double-doubles, Dreves with her 6th of the season and Dunn with her 7th. The Tigers fought hard against Arkansas on Sunday again, but came up just short, losing another nail-biter, 3-2. Despite a strong performance and a team-high 18 kills from Bella Bell, they couldn't overcome a late rally from the Razorback. From spiking to striking, where number 24 Auburn Soccer faced a challenging SEC tournament opener against LSU, falling to 2-1 despite a late goal from senior Mallory Mooney, the Tigers will now set their sights on the NCAA tournament with the selection show scheduled for next Monday at 3 p.m. Finally, let's run it out to cross country. Auburn competed at the SEC Championships in College Station, Texas. Freshmen Nixon Chebby and Brenda Chipchicher led the teams to strong finishes, with the men placing 7th and the women 8th. Chebby's 9th place finish marks the best by an Auburn freshman since 2009, while Chipchicher finished 5th overall, becoming the top freshman competitor. And that's all I have for you tonight. When we come back, you'll hear about a popular restaurant that is going bankrupt and an increase in rent costs. I'm Sophia Weber for Eagle Eye Sports, and you're watching Eagle Eye News at 6. We'll be right back.
The high cost of housing has emerged as a top concern for many voters. As a result, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump have each offered plans on how to tackle the issue. Multi-pronged plan to lower housing costs earlier this fall. It includes down payment support and a tax credit for first-time homebuyers. Harris has also proposed partnering with the private sector to build 3 million new housing units. Her plan also includes 2 proposals to lower rent costs, but they would be subject to congressional approval. Conversely, Trump has not rolled out a formal housing plan. However, he has shown interest about implementing policies to lower mortgage rates. He largely contributes the current high cost of housing to undocumented immigrants. He believes that competition between citizens and undocumented immigrants is the #1 reason for the state of the housing market today. Trump has also said he would ban undocumented immigrants from getting mortgages. There was one proposal that both Trump and Harris shared common ground on. They have each promised to repurpose some federal land for affordable housing.
TGI Fridays filed for bankruptcy protection Saturday. In a statement, the executive chairman of the casual dining chain cited the pandemic as being the cause of their financial woes. The company says the bankruptcy only affects the chain's parent company, not the franchises. All restaurants will remain open, including the dozens that are corporately owned. The company says it will use the Chapter 11 process to explore strategic alternatives in order to ensure long-term viability of the chain. There are currently 163 TGI Fridays locations across the U.S. Earlier this year, the chain abruptly shuttered 36 locations and then closed dozens more last week.
And it's not just the big chains that are struggling. A Nashville grocery store that refused to raise prices despite inflation is now in trouble. The owner says she may have to close after her landlord changed the terms of her payment plan. Hannah McDonald has the story.
In August, I visited A&M Marketplace. The store, to help their customers continue to afford fresh food, was not raising prices despite inflation.
We just hoping that people will know our story. They will come, more customers will come, and it will balance it out.
Unfortunately, the store is in a bind now. They owe $25,000 for 3 months of late rent and an additional $1,250 in late fees. While it definitely doesn't sound good, in September, the store owner, Martha Lupai, committed to a repayment plan to get caught up by the time her lease ends next summer.
And Hannah was really appreciative. I told my husband, I said, oh my God, they did this. I'm so happy.
So when she got this notice of default 3 weeks later, you can imagine her surprise.
I was misled. I felt like I was set up so that this will happen.
The notice states at the September Farmers Market board meeting, the repayment plan was declined by the board, and per the lease, A&M Marketplace had 15 days to pay up. Lupai was prepared to pay $10,745 a month through June, not come up with $27,000 in 2 weeks.
I just wanted them to honor what they said, because you cannot tell a small business owner, a minority owner, you cannot come and say, I'm doing this, and then just come up and change it immediately.
The farmers market says A&M Marketplace will be shut down if the situation isn't remedied by Thursday.
We're out of time, but for more Auburn news, head on over to our website, eagleeyeauburn.com, and check out our social media pages. I'm Beauman Ivester.
And I'm Alice Estes. Thank you for watching, and War Eagle.